The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's mission is to ensure the future of elk, other wildlife and their habitat, and our hunting heritage. By the 19-teens, we were actually probably down to less than 5,000 elk, maybe even fewer. And now in Utah alone, we have at least 80,000 elk. The other bull's legs were actually going up in the air as this bull was goring it. And some of the people they're going, no, stop, you're hurting. Facebook pictures, whatever, Snapchat, whatever you're using. At least I didn't say the Snapchat or the Facebook like some. I'm old.
Living Country in the City, Episode 8.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Living Country in the City here at the International Sportsman's Expo in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, I have the honor of getting to sit down with Bill Christensen. He is the Utah Regional Director for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Now, if you all aren't familiar with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, this is probably my favorite charity in the world. These guys have done more to restore elk herds and elk habitat than anyone in the world. It is just an amazing foundation, so I'm really excited to have Bill here with me. So thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for your kind words. I sure appreciate it. Happy to be here today.
Let's start. Why don't you just give me kind of the general overview of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, what it does, what its mission is.
The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's mission is to ensure the future of elk, other wildlife and their habitat, and our hunting heritage. It was started in 1984 by 4 Montanans in a little town called Troy, Montana, up towards Kalispell, up in the northern part. They started basically out of the back of a station wagon. They printed the first copy of Bugle magazine, and from that humble beginning, now our national headquarters is in Missoula, Montana. We have over 750 chapters across the United States, and we have members all over the world, almost every country in the world. Right now, we're sitting at about 55,000 members. We don't count members that have signed and left, so these are active members. And we basically hold all kinds of great fundraisers, banquets, women's events, shoots, archery shoots, and we raise money to ensure the future of elk and do habitat projects. Part of my job, and the biggest part, is fundraising. The other part is working with the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service, the Fish and Game Agency, to actually do on-the-ground projects.
So you say on-the-ground projects. What kind of projects do you participate in? Do you work with those groups for?
Well, Utah, being a dry state, we do water projects, water catchment systems to provide water for wildlife. We call those guzzlers. Basically, they're just a tank that's partly underground with an apron, and when there's a big rainstorm or gully washer, instead of it going into the ground or disappearing, it goes into the underground tank, and there's a little guzzler. There's a little trough outside that allows wildlife to drink. That's a big thing in dry states. We also do controlled burns and reseedings. We work with the Forest Service and the BLM to actually burn. Sometimes we've kept burning from happening. Mother Nature used to have lightning and fires all the time, and now we've got people that have houses and property, so we have to be careful, but controlled burns are great, and then we have to reseed those after. We do all kinds of habitat enhancement projects that benefit. We also do, this is the most exciting thing, I think, is we reintroduce elk. Most of the elk were extirpated out of the eastern U.S., and Utah actually helped provide elk for the reintroduction of elk in Kentucky. There was always a small herd in northern Michigan, a very small herd in northern Wisconsin, and now there are elk in, oh my word, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia. I already said that. Now we're talking of states like New York. And elk were prevalent in the east, but they were totally killed. So this is a nice opportunity for us to do a reintroduction, which is very exciting.
Now, at one point, elk were endangered, weren't they?
They were. By the 19-teens, we were actually probably down to less than 5,000 elk, maybe even fewer. And now in Utah alone, we have at least 80,000 elk. You know, we have 150,000, 130,000 in Colorado. Colorado's the biggest elk state. But and of course, for my California friends, we can't forget Tule elk. Yep. That's a separate subspecies. They're really cool. I mean, they live in kind of the wet, swampy areas of some of the forests near the coast, and they're exciting animals too. And that they were almost totally gone. We're talking less than 100 animals at one time, and now there's a good, healthy group of Tule elk.
Well, and that was a big surprise for me. Is once again, when you think hunting, California is not necessarily the first state, at least not for big game hunting, that you think of. But being from there, I knew there was bear, I knew there was deer, I'd seen it. I've been camping before, but I was fascinated when I learned that there was actually elk in California, that we had our own subspecies that hangs out. But so that being said, what's your reaction then when people come to you and say, well, you talk about how much you love elk. You talk about how wonderful they are and how much you love to save them. How can you go out and hunt an elk if you supposedly are so passionate about them?
I think that's a question for all hunters, and all hunters receive that question at one time or another. The interesting thing about that question is we've got something happening that's causing people to rethink why they would maybe want to start hunting. Probably another subject. I'm not trying to change the subject. I'll kind of circle around to your question. But people want to know where their meat comes from. They want to have an organic source of red meat, and red meat that is low in cholesterol, low in fat. And what we're finding, and what's surprising, we always talk as hunters, we go, we need to keep our youth involved in hunting. I think I might disagree with that. I think that the millennials, I think other groups are saying, you know what, I don't care about this so-called trophy hunting. I don't care about that, but I want good, healthy food. I want to know where my food comes from. So I think that's part of it, because most hunters I know, especially with elk, they're so good to eat.
Oh, yeah.
They're tasty, and I think that food is a major part of it. And also we learned, I guess a lot of us would say we're like Theodore Roosevelt, the great conservationist who basically started the Forest Service with Pinchot and others. He's our ideal. Yeah, he went out and killed animals. He actually was an amateur taxidermist. He did all kinds of things. But he understood real clearly that if hunters didn't step up, they'd go. Because we had people subsistence hunting, killing animals to eat. We had market hunters that were making money commercially. We all have heard of the story about buffalo and passenger pigeons. So basically, hunters stepped up and said, yeah, we do kill these animals, but we use them, but we also have a passion for the outdoors. We have a passion for a beautiful sunset. I mean, at my age now, I like going out with my grandkids and fishing and doing things in the outdoors, camping, spending time with them. The kill has become way less important. I think now I would say the reason why I love elk and the reason why I still hunt them is because of the great, majestic animal they are, because I respect I respect their habits. I respect the way I like the way they breed. We just listened to a great elk calling contest. It's exciting. So for me, it's a passion that won't go away, and I don't need to even hunt elk anymore to appreciate wildlife, and most hunters are the same way. I mean, I've stopped hunting before and found fossils. There's a place up where I like to hunt. I found, these are great, horned squirrel fossils, and I was a little bit of a rock hound when I was a kid, and all of a sudden I stopped thinking about hunting. I wanted to find these fossils. Then that backpack got kind of heavy. These rocks. But I'll tell you what, there's lots of reasons to be in the outdoors, and hunting is just an excuse. But there's something about an adrenaline rush when that big bull bugles and you feel that chill go up your spine, and that passion, that excitement is why I feel like I hunt, and it's why I care so much.
Well, and there's definitely something to be said for the difference between just being a passive observer of nature, which is there's nothing wrong with.
Nothing wrong at
all. And
all.
it is a beautiful thing. It's a healing thing. It's an amazing thing. But being able to take part in nature, take part in the life, and if you're successful enough, the death of an elk, it just connects you with something. I feel like that you don't always get as a passive observer.
I agree.
It connects you with other hunters. It connects you with that primal instinct that we all have from our ancestors.
It's in our DNA, I think. Yeah,
we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for hunting. At some point or another, whether it's someone in a loincloth throwing a spear at a mammoth, we're all here one way or another because of hunting.
Taking a life is a responsibility. An animal's life, of course, is still a huge responsibility. And I have always felt sadness at the end, realizing how many years this cow elk has spent. Maybe she was the head elk. Maybe she was the one that knew where to go to find water, to go find good feed. Or maybe this bull was the old guy. And now that I'm almost 60, I'm going, gee, maybe I'm turning like that. I respect an old animal that's been able to survive, to escape predators, to frankly escape man as a predator. You have to have respect for that animal. And if you don't feel sadness, then you're not a human, I don't think.
Well, there's that Fred Bear saying, where he talks about how much he respects each animal he takes, and this is a good death for that animal. I think it's something along the lines of the fate I give is a lot kinder than nature's way of fang and claw and starvation.
Unfortunately, it is a lot kinder, yeah.
Because, I know people, I talk to a lot of people, and they like to think that, the elk is going to live to a nice ripe age, have this full life, and then it's going to go to the elk retirement home. It's going to lay down in a nice patch of clover with flowers around and all the other elk bugling around it, and it's going to lay down and close its eyes and fall asleep. It's not going to die from exposure one winter. It's not going to run out of food sources on a really bad year. It's not going to get attacked by a pack of wolves that are getting real hungry. It's not going to get another elk antler right in its ribs. There's a lot worse ways for an elk to die than an arrow or a bullet to the heart. So
I remember I was in Yellowstone National Park, and there were two bulls fighting, and it was near some buildings. It wasn't that far from Old Faithful. And one bull knocked the other bull down and just literally started just goring it, trying to roll it around. The other bull's legs were actually going up in the air as this bull was goring it. And some of the people they're going, no, stop, you're hurting. And I go, I don't think people understand that nature, unfortunately, is a pretty, talk about dog eat dog, it's pretty rough. And you better be able to survive. And that's why elk, I'm always amazed how strong they are and their desire to live. The Germans have a great thing about respecting animals. I hunted in Namibia years ago, and a gentleman that we hunted with was from Germany, and we'd kill an animal, and he'd say this saying. He'd make you do a little toast at the end, and it's Weitman's Heil, Weitman's Dunk. And I don't understand German, but it's something, and I might even be pronouncing it wrong. For those that speak German, I apologize. But basically, it's something to respect to the animal, and then respect for the hunter. I love, and then you break off a branch, and you put the branch in the animal's mouth. This is after the animal is passed, but it's a way to stop and take a pause and understand that you've taken a life. And it's also a way to respect the animal. Native Americans did something similar. They usually did. I mean, they considered wildlife and the game they hunted as their brothers. They called them their brothers. So I think that man's always had a respect for wildlife. I think the secret is, whether you hunt or not, is understanding that deep, deep responsibility we have to respect and love nature and love wildlife. Whether we decide to eat it or not eat it, or to chase it or not chase it.
Well, I think that is a very important point, is that when you do take an animal, it's the world of social media. It's the world, I'm all over it, and I know the first thing you want to do is you want to get in there, you want to get behind those antlers, and you want to get those pictures, but I think it really is important to take that moment and pause and think about what you've done and consider the impact it has, and which is not necessarily
sometimes
a bad
as
impact,
hunters we're our worst own enemy. We don't understand how what you basically have in the United States is 10% of the population hunts, 10% is totally anti-hunting under any circumstance, and there's this 80% in the middle. And hunters often forget, and I'll be the first one to criticize some of the outdoor television shows that are on, that you're not showing proper respect for animals, and I think that's an issue. Shane Mahoney, a great man who I respect greatly, and if you ever go online and look up him and learn about him, he's a big proponent of what's called the North American Wildlife Management Model, in comparison to the old European model, which was the King's Deer, and it's owned by the aristocracy. But in the United States, we all own wildlife. It belongs to all of us. It's a public thing. And my advice to those that hunt is show some respect. Remember that people are watching you, and you're going to be able to make them either people who may not hunt, but who understand the importance of hunting as a management tool, and not make somebody who just totally says, I hate hunters, I hate hunting. And a lot of that comes from the way we are perceived. Facebook pictures, whatever, Snapchat, whatever you're using. At least I didn't say the Snapchat or the Facebook like some. I'm old, but I got to tell you, I think that's a responsibility that hunters have. And we're kind of in a little bit of a competition with anti-hunters for the heart and soul of the bulk of the American people. And I think hunters need to stop and see what they're doing and say, "God, maybe I need to change a little bit of what I'm doing."
And it's a tough thing, definitely, because you want to be able to share that, and you don't want to say you're kind of compromising too much and kowtowing to the antis, but you also have to realize this is the world we live in too, and the things we do can have a very, very high impact on policy. Like, I mean, a few photos can make a huge difference in the policy of a county or a state, and suddenly that picture that maybe wasn't the best one is the poster for an anti-hunting campaign that somebody's running.
Everybody remembers Cecil the Lion. I mean,
yep.
You need to think before you. I think before you publicize what you do. And, I don't have anything against somebody who uses the term trophy hunting, but I could see why part of the 80% of the people out there might say, I don't understand that. I honestly believe this new move towards an organic food source is really one of the best reasons to hunt, and one of the best reasons hunting is going to persevere and maybe grow, because, like I say, it's not just our youngsters. I'm talking about people that are in their 20s and 30s are starting to go, hey, I mean, they'll look at me and go, God, I don't want to be fat like that guy. I want to be healthy. And, I eat my red meat mostly is elk. But, I'm like anyone else. I'm in a hurry. I go to In-N-Out or Carl's Jr., grab a burger. But nothing is better for you than elk. And it's the lowest in cholesterol. It's the lowest in fat. And it can be a healthy meat item for you to put in your diet, and I think that's going to help hunting in the long run.
Well, and you pick up one of those Steve Rinella books, you got an infinite number of fantastic recipes. That's actually
must be getting close to dinner.
We're sitting talking about this. I'm looking at my watch thinking, anybody got a freezer full of elk?
Yeah,
here?
maybe we had
to
go home and see if my wife has some elk in the Traeger and see if we can eat something.
Oh,
That'd be good.
There we go. Yeah, no, I mean, that's actually one person I really appreciate a lot of what he's done. His show is on Netflix now.
Yes.
And it's one of those ways I feel like he approaches it from such a respectful manner, but such a holistic manner as well. You'll watch one whole episode of him sitting there teaching you how to grind elk meat and saying like, oh, okay, you need to mix this in, and these are the pieces you want to do for that, and this is how you make the steak. And and then there'll be a hunting episode, and then there'll be the one of just them all sitting around barbecuing in the backyard, and it gives such a complete picture. I feel like Cameron Haynes is another person.
Cameron, he's an animal.
Oh gosh, every time I hear his name, I just feel like I need to have like a weight in my backpack and start lifting or something just for a couple of minutes to get my pump on.
Yeah, that's serious, hardcore stuff. But everyone I know who's a serious backcountry elk hunter has to be in tip-top shape. I'm not in tip-top shape. I'm older and I'm overweight, but I go very slowly. I take my time. I do a lot of scouting, a lot of spotting, a lot of stalking, a lot of glassing. I mean, that's what happens. My hunting style has changed as I've gotten older. But I know people in their 70s that I've hunted with that still mountain goat and take on the mountain, and those people impress me.
It's giving that holistic view of what we're doing. Anything, I talked about this with Christy before, anything, any culture, whether it's hunting culture, whether it's anybody's culture, if you take one small piece of it out of context, it can be twisted to be the greatest thing on earth, it can be twisted to be the worst thing on earth.
That's our interesting political situation we find ourselves in now.
So the motto of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, hunting is conservation.
Right.
I absolutely love that. When you know what it's about, it makes so much sense, but it's one of those things where to the layman it seems like such a contradiction. It makes them want to ask more.
Sure.
And it's really
and it's a fair question.
Yeah. It's especially in my podcast, Living Country in the City. It's all about people like me who come from a background that's not as exposed to stuff like this, and a lot of people come up to you and, oh, what's this whole hunting thing about? Not in a negative way, but just in a curious, I've never been exposed to this except for, watching Christopher Walken in Deer Hunter or something like that. And
wow, that's a tough way to learn about hunting.
Yeah, that
through Hollywood. That's rough.
Once it's kind of funny. I actually just watched that recently after learning a bit more about hunting, and I'm like, this movie's bizarre. Watching
a lot of hunters watch a movie that shows hunting, and it's usually some slobby person who is throwing beer cans out and takes shots without knowing what their target is. And I hear a sound in the bushes, boom. You're going, God, what an idiot. There's always a minority of people, like there is in any group of people, that are unthinking or ignorant. But from my experience, hunters are qualified. They do a good job. They understand hunting inside and out. They've spent the time. They've done their homework. They understand it.
So if people want to get involved, really want to help out with the mission of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, where can they start? Easy.
Go to our website, elkfoundation.org or rmef.org or rmef.com or
huntingisconservation.com.
Yeah, you do any of those, any of our little mottos or sayings that are all copyrighted, but you can go to anything. 1-800-CALL-ELK for the old-time people that like to use a phone still. That's right. Yeah, hopefully it's not a rotary phone, but you never know. I still remember those very clearly, but it's real easy. RMEF.org, elkfoundation.org.
So what opportunities are out there for people that want to help?
There's a lot of opportunities. Well, we have our fundraising, of course, which is fun. We put on banquets and fundraisers. We put on clay shoots, trap shoots, archery shoots. Archery shoots are an area that have really grown, especially in Utah. We do on-the-ground projects. Every year in Utah, we have at least 2 or 3 projects. Lately, they've been mostly water projects, installing those water guzzlers I talked about earlier.
Okay.
That's a lot of fun. I mean, kids can help. That you can actually complete with a group of people a guzzler in one day. And you can go back time and time again on the forest or on the BLM, or if it's on state ground or state or park land, and you can see. And a lot of those guys, the biologists will put cameras on them, and they will send you pictures. Mountain lions, bears, birds of all kinds, elk, deer, if there's moose in that area, whatever. But you put a camera up there and you see what comes into drink. It's fascinating. And people can take pride in doing a hands-on project.
That's really exciting. And so there's so many hands-on opportunities. There's donation opportunities. If you don't mind my asking, do you know what as far as donation-wise, general percentages that go?
Sure. We have to comply with national accounting practices. We're the only hunting conservation group that has a 4-star Charity Navigator rating, which is an independent rating service. That's nice for us, and we can say that depending on the year, it's 89 to 91 cents of every dollar goes towards mission. Now, people go, what does that mean? Well, it's the on-the-ground stuff, all right. All the projects we do with the Forest Service, BLM, the Fish and Game, on our own. We do conservation easements with landowners on large tracts of land. We occasionally do acquisitions, but not too often. The bottom line is part of my salary, believe it or not, because I do projects, is considered mission. I'm not an accountant, but the national accounting practices have to be followed. But we can say we put 89 cents to 91 cents, depending on the year, of every dollar on towards our mission.
Now, we have the website. You guys are on social media. We'll link to all of these sites, all of the social media on our show notes page. Any other final closing thoughts for our audience here?
Well, first of all, remember you can watch us on the Outdoor Channel. We've got Team Elk. It's not your usual hook and bullet show. You'll find it interesting. It's usually archer hunting. Sometimes it's rifle hunting. Okay. But we have kids. We have different types of people. And the kill is not the primary. We often go without a kill, different than a lot of shows. So please tune in and do that. Feel free to get involved. Every state, almost every part of California, even Southern California, has chapters for the Elk Foundation. Give us a call. Go online, send a message to us or an email. We'd love to have you join with us. It's open to everybody.
Fantastic. Well, hit up RMEF.org, sign up, get a membership, get your hands on a Bugle magazine, find a way to get involved. You could not be putting your time or your money towards a better charity. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy with everything going on, so I appreciate you taking a few moments to talk.
My pleasure. Thanks, my friend. Appreciate you.
Hey, y'all, that's going to do it for episode 8 of Living Country in the City. Another big thank you to Bill for taking the time out of a very busy day to sit down with me and talk about the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Honestly, folks, take a minute to read up on the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, sign up for a membership, get a subscription to Bugle Magazine if you can. Otherwise, just find a way to get involved, support, spread the word. Find all of their info on the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/8. And in the meantime, stay country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.